Hello and welcome to Learn System View in 5 minutes. This is Tutorial 21, where I will give you an introduction to a new dataset viewer in the latest System View 2020 Update 1 release. So before we look at the new dataset viewer, let's go back to System View 2020 release or any release earlier than this which you might be using. When we open the dataset, this is how the typical dataset looks like for us, and it's kind of flat mode. That means even if you have 2 cross 20 array or 6 cross 300 array, everything is shown here in a kind of flat format. Now, you could do common operations in the older version of SystemVue as well. That means you could right click, you can copy the value of the dataset variable, you can make duplicate of this data so that you can apply some equations or post processing and things like that, but it requires a pretty number of clicks to reach to that point. And what if I would like to use MATLAB as my post-processing tool, and I need a very simple way of exporting system view generated data into a MATLAB file, or I would like to generate a CSV file, which in turn I may want to use it inside a tool like Python for doing data mining, etc. So some of those things can be done in system view older releases, but it takes some amount of effort from designers' precious time. Now let's look at the latest dataset viewer. So we have the same example here, but now I'm using SystemVue 2020 Update 1, which got released recently. And if I open up the same data set here, you can notice a very fresh look here, which is very different compared to what we were seeing earlier in older system view releases. So here, no matter which data you have, it properly gets plotted as rows and columns, and you know the matrix size or the kind of data which you are looking at. For example, in this case, we have 6 rows and 31 columns. Remember, in the last tutorial video, we did power sweep, and I'm looking at the swept data. And that's why it has 6 cross 31, 6 number of nodes in our RF system, and 30 power points, resulting in the array size here. Now, here looking at the data, you can see you have a lot of these, table entries. And if you want to change the precision of the decimal points, you could do very simply by clicking on these buttons. I can change, my viewing preferences on the fly, and I could get a little more detailed, information on the data. Also, if I want to export any data, for example, I can look at DCP or channel power. And if I expand, so here, if I look at the property of this data, this is how the window might collapse or expand. Now, if I want to do transpose function, I could transpose the data. I could look at, row versus column and column versus row and things like that. You could look at like a flat mode, like you are used to see in older version of system view. You could look at the default view, so it resets the entire operation which you might have done. Now, for example, if I have to extract only, let's say, first 10 columns of the data, so I could apply filtering. I could filter it by index value. I could set my minimum index and maximum index. And once I click OK, now you can see now I only have, 10 column of data which is available here. Or if I only want to see from 5 to 10, I could even truncate that. Now, if I have to generate a CSV file or a MAT file for either this selection, selective data, what we have created, I can select the data, and I could just simply right click on the variable and select export. Now, when you select export option, you could send the entire data set to a CSV or a MAT file, or you could only send value of this variable, let's say CP, into the external file, or you could only send a selection. So for example, here I have only selected some of the components from the entire data set, and I will generate a CSV file on my desktop. So with the simple operation, a new file gets created on my desktop, and I can go ahead and double click, open it in Excel and look at the data. Isn't that very easy to do? So no matter which type of data you want to generate from here. So let me show you one example for MAT file. So if I select export, I can generate MAT file, and I would like to send the entire variable value, which will be 6 cross 31, resulting in 186 kind of dimension, I can go ahead and export a mat file on my desktop. And now when I go back to my desktop, I definitely have a mat file. And if you have MATLAB where you would like to, view this mat file and perform some signal processing, I could just simply double click, open up the MATLAB, and now this file can be read inside MATLAB. And we can notice is 186 cross 1, kind of data available inside MATLAB. And I could take a look at this data. I could right click, I could do plot CP. I can look at the plots. And now you are in MATLAB domain. You could do all your favorite things which you are used to do in MATLAB. Not only this, we can also do some of the formulas. I could, instead of looking values as dBm, I could go ahead and change it to watts, and I can look at the values as watts or dBW and things like that. So all those common operations where you might need to write a simple equation or a script, no need to do all those. You can do things very easily. So hopefully the new dataset viewer provides you a good capability to shorten your design time and data processing time, and you can be more productive for your job. Feel free to try out the latest series of SystemVue 2020 Update 1 release. I just shown you one new feature of the release. There are tons of new improvements coming your way in terms of RF design, mixed signal design, 5G NR, and many other technologies you might be using it for. Thanks very much for watching the video and wish you all the best for your design work.